Good day, everyone. How are you on this beautiful, kind of brisk, chilly October day? I hope you're well. I am 𝐸𝐸of Ball of Fire Coaching, and this is Power Hour Coaching, where I take on your questions, stories, and challenges to really help you get the tips and advice and strategies you need to be a powerhouse leader. So if you are struggling in any way, shape, or form, or just that you have a question or a challenge or a decision or an opportunity in front of you, and you would like some support and some guidance on it, then take advantage of being here right now and post your comments below. And I will be keeping an eye out for them as we're streaming across multiple platforms, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And I will make sure that I address them during the time that we have together. If you come and you actually watch this post live, then be sure to still comment, and I will get notifications and I will get with you directly so you get the help and the support that you need to continue moving forward in your career and in your life. Now, today, I wanted to talk about self-awareness, but specifically angled on the question that I was asked the other day in a very deep conversation about whether or not young leaders, and we'll define that in a minute, but young leaders should be self-aware. Should they be evolved? Should they be mature enough? Should they be developed enough to where they are self-aware? And if they are, what are the advantages? What are the benefits? If they're not, or if they even should be, what are the impacts that would have not only on themselves, but also on the people around them and overall their career trajectory? So we want to address all of that because it came from a conversation that I had, as I mentioned, that really stemmed from this individual being a young leader. So what is young? Well, I'm going to just put it out there that in this conversation, I'm talking about those individuals that are under 30. Because you can think, you can consider that they're just out of college, they're just starting their career. And as they get into their early 30s, they are more polished, more mature, more evolved in their leadership style. Now, that doesn't mean, and I'm a pure example of it. It doesn't mean that they are evolved in their self-awareness. It took me until I was in my late 40s, but we're gonna address the fact that it could be that these 20-somethings have an opportunity. Who wants to meet the chatty one that's in my studio today? Come here. You're making all this noise, so I'm going to have to introduce. This is Teddy. So I apologize. We actually have a full house here, several dogs visiting today, and two of them are quite the yappy ones. So anyway, so this is Teddy. Say hello. Say hello. And then we'll get on with our conversation. So, and I might need to hold him while I'm doing that. So as I mentioned, I was having this conversation with a young lady, mid-20s, and I was just extremely impressed about how self-aware she was. Just through our natural conversations about some other topics and challenges that she was having, I just all of a sudden, was picking up on the fact that she's really in touch with who she is, what she wants, what she doesn't want, and a number of other factors that really differentiate her, at least in, all of the young professionals that I have worked with over the years. She really differentiates herself from many others, even those that are in their 30s, 40s, and 50s and 60s, when it comes to just her really tapping into who she is and what it is that she wants, but also what she sees her purpose to be as a leader in the workplace. And I thought to myself, is that an expectation? Is that common? Is that something that these younger professionals early career professionals are really focused on? Or is this kind of an anomaly? Is she an anomaly? And so I thought, okay, let's have a discussion in regards to this, because for many of us leaders that are more seasoned out there, we really need to pay attention to those young leaders because they are the future. And if we can get them kind of working toward really tapping in to their style and how they're going to be successful, not only working for you, but working throughout their career, then it's a topic that should be discussed. And so that's what we're going to discuss today. But at the same time, while we're here, if you happen to have a question, story, or challenge you want addressed, then drop a comment and I'll keep an eye out for them and make sure that we get to them before leaving. All right. So what are the advantages of someone and a young leader being self-aware? Well, it applies to anybody. If you're self-aware, you're really in touch with, as I mentioned, kind of who you are and who you want to be, what you want in your work and your life, but what you don't want, which is even more critical. The effect and the impact that you have on the people around you, and or the empathy and the compassion and consideration that you have for not only how you're treating others and how you're coming across to other people, but how the others are perceiving you. And if you can get in touch with that from an early age, that is a huge benefit and differentiator for you. Because like I said, it took me until my late 40s to really kind of open my eyes, open my mind to being honest and truthful with myself and very accountable to what for years others' perception of me was, that I just, didn't pay attention to. Actually, I didn't care for a long time. It wasn't important to me. And yet it was also kind of the demise of my corporate career. And so this earlier and the sooner in one's life and or work life that leaders that are more seasoned and more evolved can help those up and comers, the better and the more valuable they will be, and the better contribution they'll be making to the work that they do, which ultimately is going to help the work that you do and the company as a whole. So understanding who they are, what's important to them, what's important to how they want to be viewed as a leader. Those that are self-aware really kind of take time to understand all of this. And then another key differentiator from that is the fact that they are in touch with the perception, the way that their beliefs, emotions, thoughts, words, and actions are impacting those around them, and they can adapt, they can shift, they can be flexible in how they approach not only people as a collective, like a team, but also individuals within the team. There is nothing better than an individual who can read the room, as they say. And I've mentioned this story before, but in my 20s, I had a boss. Her name was Nikki. I actually spoke about this last week as well, right here on Power Hour. And her name was Nikki. I was a lingerie buyer. She was our director. And on my team, there was 5 or 6 other women. 5 or 6 other women with very different personalities and different backgrounds, different cultures, let alone different styles about going, throughout their day. And Nikki just left me in awe all the time, because we could be in a Monday morning status meeting and pretty tight room. All of our chairs in front of her big desk are pretty tight and close together. And she's on the other side. And she would just go from one person to the next and ask them a number of questions and expect, feedback and raising of issues and a dialogue for 5, 10, whatever time it took for her to have a really good understanding about what's going on and how she can help and support and coach that individual. So here we are in this room, very close together, and you could literally see her transform and mutate into someone that that person she's speaking to needs, needs in order to be effective, and in order to be productive, and in order to be very open to whether or not that's just feedback or criticism or even accolades. And she could see that, for instance, Annie was a more seasoned individual than her, and she was French, so her culture, kind of played a part of who she was. And she really, required a lot of stroking, a lot of coaching, a lot of hand holding and motivation. And so Nikki would, her whole body, voice, everything would change in order to meet Annie where she was. She was very, Annie would oftentimes be fragile, and Nikki would just kind of soften her voice, slow her voice down, move in, reach out her hand to touch her. And then she'd move on, and she might hit up, Janet or Gail, who were very strong personalities, as I was. And she would see that they didn't need all of that. What they needed some direct, straight talk. They needed some bullet items. They needed some action items. They needed some motivation. They needed to be told that they're doing a great job, but it didn't need to be in a kind of a stroking, coddling type of way. And so Nikki literally would adapt. So why am I, sharing this story with you? Well, I think she was in her late 30s. I was in my mid 20s, very much like this woman I was speaking to the other day, this young leader. And I just wish I kind of hung on to that observation and that awe as I went and continued to kind of rampage through my career over the next 15, 20 years. Because had I really been self-aware of exactly how I was coming across in my words, my actions, my behaviors, my body language, I would have recognized too that other people are very different and need different things, and therefore would have kind of mirrored her or used her as an example of how to shift and adapt to meet people where they are. So self-awareness, lends itself to huge benefits for the individual as well as the people around them, and then ultimately the business. Excuse me. So she had asked another question, and I have some things written down here that I wanted to make sure I talked about. So why is it important that, and this was a question from her, why is it important that someone herself and or even leaders looking at themselves and the people that work for them, why is it important that they be self-aware? Well, basically, if you know who you are and what it is you want and don't want, then you can ensure that you're not only projecting that, but you're asking and requiring that of others around you. I often hear so often that, well, this individual never came to me and asked me for help. That would be kind of the boss about their employee. Well, they never really came to me and asked me for help. And the question is, well, do they act? They should come to you. We'll get to that in a second. But what did you observe? What did you hear or see from them or didn't see from them? Meaning deliverables on timeliness, productivity, performance, that maybe would have triggered you asking and walking up and, asking, what do you need? How are you? And I'm going to give you some tips as to what leaders can do to help their younger leaders to be not only just self-aware, but also to be successful. So someone who's self-aware at any age, it's very beneficial because they'll know what it is that they need in order to be successful and in order to really support and contribute the way they want to in the role that they have for the person that they're working for the company that they're in. And so that would be one thing. Also, if they know what they want and what they need, then they can also kind of be resourceful. And this goes to what I just mentioned about they should take responsibility to step up and ask. So then all of a sudden, if they know what they want and they need, then they have kind of the information that they need to go and seek, whether that is from their boss. It could be a resource online. It could be training within the company. It could be a team member. But if they're self-aware and they're paying attention to what are my strengths, what are my gaps, where are the areas that I can actually exceed expectations so I can drive my career forward, then they'll then know what it is that they should be seeking. So, excuse me. At the same time, someone who is very self-aware and knows who they really are, they're so much more relatable. Now, young leaders, the number one thing I would love for them beyond self-awareness to really kind of seek and go after is learning from the get-go how to connect and relate to other people, how to build relationships. There's nothing that's more powerful at any stage of your career than having relationships that are meaningful, relationships that are teaching you, are course correcting you, are there to guide and mentor and coach you. And maybe at some point, if you need them, they can be there to advocate and sponsor you. So someone who's very in touch with who they are and what they want, what they don't want, who they want to be, who they don't want to be, what their goals and aspirations are, what they're, really going after, and what are the long-term goals, really can kind of walk in a room and you just sense it about them because they're authentic, they're real, they're intentional, they're purposeful. They just have a good, as people will say, a good head on their shoulders. And therefore, they can be very relatable and be very useful in building the relationships that are going to help not only themselves, but their team and the people around them. Excuse me. Self-aware people, more so than the others, are a lot more accountable. They kind of know where their flaws are. They know where their strengths are. They know what it is that they can contribute or what it is that they need to learn and develop. And they are often a lot more accountable to being, kind of those deficits or those assets. And they therefore can be more responsible to delivering on what it is that you need and what it is that they're responsible for. And if they don't deliver, then they're kind of conscious of that and therefore are accepting of being held accountable. I often use the analogy with my clients when it comes to boss-employee relationships. I often use the analogy of parents and children because think about it. If you are a parent, think about, your kids might always fight against discipline, always fight against boundaries and accountability. And yet without it, they just are lost and they could be more destructive, without all of those frameworks in place. Well, employees are very much the same way. They may say that, oh, they want all this flexibility and they want a boss that really understands who they are, and they don't want to be, pigeonholed in a box and so forth and so on. However, without structure, without discipline, without accountability, without a framework of what it is that they're responsible to do and not do, things start, kind of ripping apart at the seams. And so someone who is self-aware around kind of how they're contributing or what they're contributing or not contributing, how they're performing or not performing, how they're relating and connecting and engaging and collaborating with others. They simply will seek, more so than others, they will seek guidance and support and mentoring and coaching from those around them. And you can't want anything more than your employee kind of stepping up and owning what it is that they're doing or not doing, and then seeking, accepting feedback, accepting course correction, accepting discipline, and then, keep moving forward. So, excuse me. And that leads to also that as a result of self-aware individuals kind of knowing exactly who they are, who they want to be, what they want, what they don't want, being accountable. That accountability also lends itself to someone who can be trusted and who works to build trust with the people around them, teammates, bosses, seniors, other up and comers other than themselves. They really consider trust to be a major factor for their success, and they can establish trust from others as a result. Because it's just what we're talking about is just naturally lending itself to, all right, this person understands who they are. They understand what they're responsible for. They understand kind of the framework that they're working within. They're taking accountability for it. They're stepping up and they're, humbly acknowledging their, what I call riches. At the same time, they're also owning where they're falling short. And again, you can't help but want that type of person, because that type of person you can trust, and they're establishing trust just through their performance, through their behaviors, through their actions, through their words. And nothing can be more beneficial to an employee and the company, for someone for having that. Excuse me. So whether you're 25 or whether you're 65, working on your self-awareness at work or at home and or both, there's just so many opportunities, so many advantages, so many benefits, not only to the people around you and to your company, but also to yourself. And so I would certainly advocate, and I'll talk about some actions that people can take and that you can take in order to build your own self-awareness. And we'll talk about also what seasoned leaders can do for those younger leaders to help them along that journey as well. We'll talk about that in a minute. So for those who aren't very self-aware, what are the impacts of that to everyone and everything around them, including the success of the business? Well, you can just take all the benefits that we just talked about, all the advantages, and flip them on their head. If someone's not self-aware, then most likely they're not accountable. They're not taking accountability because they're not recognizing their own, not only strengths, but their own flaws, their own areas for development, their own gaps, their own needs. Someone who's not self-aware doesn't really recognize what it is that they do need to be successful, what they do want, or they're at least not owning it. And a great part of the work that I do at Ball of Fire Coaching is helping others, not just corporate professionals, but others to really understand. I have a dog on my lap for those of you joining late, to prevent him from barking up a storm. I lost my train of thought. So someone that is not self-aware is not only not accountable, but that accountability festers in others not being able to trust them. Have you ever had a boss or worked with someone or had someone work for you who never took responsibility for what it is that they are supposed to be doing, let alone what they land up doing. And they don't own it, and they don't really work within the confines, and they don't take instruction really well, or feedback or coaching really well. And they're missing deadlines, and they're falling short of what it was that they were supposed to deliver on. They're showing up late, whatever the case might be. Well, what is your immediate perception? Well, it's, it could be a number of things, from lazy, from difficult to work with, but most likely all of those things are going to come down to a lack of trust that you have in that individual, that they're going to be able to show up and do what it is that you need them to do for you. And that's personal or professionally. And therefore, all of a sudden, another negative impact is, all of a sudden, people start disengaging. People start feeling repelled by that individual. People start, recognizing that, especially if it's a boss or someone that an employee is supposed to be getting coached and mentored by. Well, all of a sudden they, recognize that there might be a challenge on my part to getting advanced, being developed, coached in advance, because of the fact that this individual doesn't really recognize in themselves what they need, but let alone recognize in me what I need. And that will certainly be damaging eventually, to not only to that individual, but to your team and to the company, if that individual all of a sudden decides to want to move on. Because we all hear it. The mass exodus from jobs is not due to their salary or due to the company. It's due to working for someone, for a boss. I won't call them a leader, for a boss that isn't giving them what they need in order to be successful. And so you'd certainly want to ensure, whether or not you consider it self-awareness or not, you want to be ensured that you're giving your people, and that the people, your employees, are seeking as well for themselves, taking responsibility for themselves, that they are seeking what it is they need to be successful. So self-awareness comes into play, because you're only going to know what you need based on what it is you know of yourself, of who you are, who you want to be, what you want, what you don't want, what are your strengths, what are your areas of development, what are your gaps, what are those skills or traits or qualities that will, exceed expectation and help you advance proactively, like planning that out. You don't have to wait in order to, kind of seek that support, coaching, training. You could actually be proactively planning for it. So, so that's, those are the benefits and the negative impacts to someone who is self-aware or lacking self-awareness. So how can you as a leader, help the young leaders coming up, and then even yourself or other seasoned leaders around you that you feel may be lacking in their self-awareness? Now, before I get into that, I will tell you, at Ball of Fire Coaching, we focus a great deal on everything that we're talking about. We help those so managers who come to us themselves. They feel that they're just not delivering on what it is that their company needs in order for them to be successful. Or we have hiring managers and HR leaders that will come and say, hey, we have this great potential, this, emerging leader that just needs some guidance and some support and some help and some self-awareness. And therefore, can you help? So you can learn more about what it is that we do at balloffirecoaching.com, and then reach out and let me know if you'd like to talk and just share what might be going on with you or a team member. And we would love to help. All right. Because we literally are addressing this exact issue. Self-awareness as a whole, though we work with young and more seasoned leaders, and we would love to be able to help you as well. All right. And I just want to remind you that whether you're watching this live or you've come in, for replay, because maybe you want to see this little guy who I have to keep on my lap because he's been barking up a storm. This is Teddy. Say hi, Teddy. But whether you're live or watching this in replay, feel free to leave your comments of your questions, your challenges. Maybe it's a decision you need to make or an opportunity you have. And I will personally get back to you with some tips and advice and guidance on how you can keep moving forward. All right. Okay. So what can you do as a leader for these young leaders, as well as anyone else that you feel, including yourself, that may not be fully self-aware? Again, I think first we need to acknowledge that, any of us at any age, the more we know and learn about ourselves, the better equipped we are to lead a very happy, fulfilled, and successful life at home and at work. And so with that understanding, you would hope that any one of us would, leverage even a daily practice of learning something, even the smallest little thing about ourselves, in order to take advantage of all of those benefits and advantages that we've talked about. But if, you as a leader can certainly lend yourself to supporting these young, up and coming, emerging, and even seasoned leaders, work on this themselves and work on them just becoming the type of leader that you want for your team and for your company. So the first suggestion that I would have for you is ask them. Simply ask them. Whether they've worked with you for, a day or worked with you for 5 years. There's no reason why all of a sudden you can't sit them down one-on-one and have a genuine conversation and ask them, what is it you need to be successful? What is it you need to win at accomplishing your goals? What is it that I can provide you to help you advance and move forward in your career? So just simply ask them. Now, do they have a responsibility? Sure, I'm asked that all the time. Don't they have the responsibility to come to me for help? Certainly. But you as a leader also have a responsibility to be self-aware of what it is that your people need. Many of us will often say in the coaching industry, meet them where they are. You want to be able to meet your people where they are and learn from them directly as to what it is that they need in order to be successful. And if they don't know, which is what we're talking about, Teddy, if they don't know, well, there's that self-awareness, right? And therefore, what resources, what support can you provide them in order to then allow them to take themselves on a self-awareness type of journey? And we can certainly discuss that, as well as what are some of those resources and tips that can be done in order to accomplish that. And of course, you can always engage a coach that specifically focuses on self-awareness and overall leadership. And again, if you did want to have a conversation in regards to it, you can always book a call with me, and we can kind of discuss what it is or who it is that you're thinking about, and provide you some next steps in regards to it. Okay. All right. So simply ask. That's where the self-awareness comes in. Now, at the same time, you could be asking yourself that question. You could be asking yourself, what is it that I need to be successful? And start your own self-awareness journey if you feel that there's areas that you can improve on there. Again, self-awareness has so many benefits to yourself, to your team, and to your business, and therefore success. And it took me until I was in my late 40s to even slow down enough to ask a lot of questions of myself for me to become self-aware, because I was completely blind to exactly who I was and how I was coming across to other people in my leadership style and even in my personal style. You don't want to wait until you're in your late 40s. And if you happen to be in your 50s or 60s, well, you don't want to wait any longer, right? Okay, so ask them. And then part of that asking them, because as I mentioned, they do have a responsibility to also come and seek help. And I know from my own experience, and I remember exactly because I still do it today, from even in my teens to through my career, I always proactively sought people that I could ask, what is it I need to be working on or focused on in order to X, Y, and Z? And so there is a responsibility on that individual to also be asking others a number of questions for them to gain understanding. But if you can recall when you were in your early 20s, right out of college, starting your career, maybe you're even your mid to late, you are just going like a hamster on a wheel, and you don't slow yourself down because all you're really concerned about in your 20s is just making a mark, creating your life, forming your career path, even though it's going to change vastly from the time you're in your 20s to the time you're in your 50s or 60s. And so us seasoned leaders can certainly be helping by asking them and letting them know, look, your success is up to you. My father taught me that from a very early age. Mentors along the way always express that. That's why I went proactively seeking and asking a lot of different questions. And hopefully you find the people that will, kind of tell you like it is, be open up front, give you feedback, so forth and so on. So ask them at the same time, let them know it's also their responsibility for their own success to be proactively seeking for that type of support and feedback. Excuse me. The next thing I would suggest is expect more from them. Now, we talked several weeks ago about the whole quiet quitting movement going on. And I had mentioned that I was watching a talk show that had kind of the pro and con side of quiet quitting, those that are, driving the movement and those that think it's extremely damaging to young people. And so if we think about, excuse me, let me just calm the throat. So if we think about kind of expectations, what is going to help an individual to advance and get ahead? Well, we can't ignore the fact that we're going to need to expect more from them, and they need to deliver more than what is just expected of them. And when I was listening to the quiet quitting argument or debate, I'll call it, on this talk show, the people advocating for the movement around quiet quitting, I mean, I couldn't, do anything but surmise that they're just wanting to be lazy. They're emphasizing, this is the box that you've given me in a job description. And therefore I'm just going to check off that list of tasks in that box and not do anything more than what's expected of me, whether that is, working beyond 9 to 5, whether that is taking on a new initiative or a stretch goal or, a task that isn't assigned on a piece of paper to them. And, they were stressing that, we just need to teach young people that, we shouldn't be expected to do more than what we're assigned to do in order to get ahead. Well, just the there's just no logic to that. If anybody had been in the business world and had been successful, there's always the need to exceed expectation. And how do you do that? You don't do it by just checking off what is expected of you. That's just kind of meeting expectation. And meeting expectation when someone else is over delivering, just immediately, kind of knocks you off the podium of opportunity. And so we as leaders need to expect more, regardless of what any movement is telling us, regardless of even what those individuals in the movement that might be working for you are telling you. And basically it really comes down to a simple conversation. Well, that's fine. Just understand, what opportunities you have or don't have as a result of simply meeting expectations, because you get paid for that. You don't get advanced for that. You don't even, in a lot of cases, get bonused for that. So as long as you have an understanding and have an expectation, or understand my expectation. And so we can accept that. And hopefully, a lot of the seasoned, very experienced, successful leaders are not. And we just need to make sure that they fully understand, that we expect more from them if they want to be a powerhouse leader, as we say here. And then lastly, leaders out there, seasoned leaders, really focus, be intentional about motivating and inspiring and developing your employees, young or not. That is your job as a leader. Your job as a leader is not to be the doobie, checking off the task list. Your job is to motivate, inspire, influence, develop, grow, and advance the people that work for you, and make it an environment for them that they are excited about getting up every morning and trudging to that office if they do, or, working through all the distractions of working at home, like dogs that won't quiet. So, just ensure that you're inspiring them. But I am actually going to add one last thing, because this was something that certainly helped my career in my 20s and even into my 30s and 40s. Apart from having them exceed expectation, challenge them. Give them something that is uncomfortable for them. Give them something that stretches them. Give them something that doesn't fit into even kind of the path that they're looking to achieve. You often hear, and I'll use actors and actresses, actors and actresses, as they're working to hone and become that individual, that actor, they're taking side hustles. They're taking side hustles. They're taking, jobs that are totally outside of them wanting to be a successful actor or actress. And, they're doing it. One, they're also gaining other skills and other traits that they can bring into the role. But they're doing it because they recognize that they need to be challenged. Yes, they need a paycheck. For those of you out there going, well, they need the money, but they need the paycheck. But at the same time, they're also stretching themselves and recognizing too that a lot of the experiences that they're getting doing that side hustle or that job they really don't want to be doing is also going to feed into their craft, feed into their real career path, whether it's an actor or an actress or a business leader. And so even challenge them to do things outside their expected norm, and, give them the opportunity to kind of prove themselves. And that also will require a lot of trust on your part, by the way, which is what you also need to provide them, is trust. You need to let them make mistakes. You need to let them screw up really bad. You need to let them be successful and to really kind of accomplish, if not exceed, what it is that you've set them out to do. You need to be good with that and comfortable with that, because the young leaders are your future. And so seasoned leaders should always be thinking about succession and legacy. And you might say, oh, what is legacy? Well, you might be setting examples for children at home or for, other employees around you. Just as my example about Nikki, I forgot about the lesson she taught me when I was so unself-aware. And I was just so greedy and so self-serving in my 20s, 30s, and 40s. But in my late 40s, when I all of a sudden started really working on my own self-awareness, I had to look at the lessons that I was taught and who taught me those lessons. And all of a sudden, this memory of Nikki and this reflection of what a true leader is just, became so strong and apparent, I couldn't ignore it. And I've been talking about it ever since. It's probably been about 10 years now. And so that is, our jobs as leaders is to meet them where they are, recognize what it is that they need, and to, provide it to them. Okay. Let me just make sure I'm covering everything. So what can you do? Whether you're that young leader. Hi, this is Teddy. He's on my lap because if not, he's going to be barking up a storm if I put him down. He's not mine. He's visiting for the day. But what can you do to really work on your own self-awareness? And you could pass this on and train the trainer, so to speak. But what can you do? One is ask yourself a lot of questions. And I've mentioned the basic questions multiple times during the session. Ask yourself, who am I? I can't tell you how many of my clients, when I ask that question, they stumble right over it. And they don't have a clue as to who they really are. Yes, they'll let me know that, well, they're whatever their position is, who they work for, what their responsibilities are, maybe their marital status, kids, very, kind of artificial, very vanity based. They don't necessarily get into the essence of who they truly are, their qualities, their traits, their values, what they believe in, what they stand for, so forth and so on. And so that would be the first core question. If you want to gain self-awareness of yourself, that would be the first core question to ask yourself is, who am I? And then you can go on and ask those other questions. Who am I? Who do I want to be? Who do I not want to be? That's been a big question I've asked myself extensively over the last 12, 14 years. What do I want? What do I not want? What are my dreams and goals and aspirations? What are my beliefs? What do I stand for? And I have I have a list of about 100 other questions that if you want to be gaining self-awareness, you could be asking yourself. But start there. Ask yourself those initial questions and really take time, intentionally, purposely, focused time to answer them. I'd prefer you doing it on a piece of paper or on your phone or computer, but definitely out of your head and onto a piece of paper. So you can kind of look at it and come back to it and reflect on it, so forth and so on. And then, which is what I'm trying to do right now, is the second one would be to challenge yourself each and every moment of every day to be present. Because again, self-awareness is all about really understanding, kind of your beliefs, your thoughts, your emotions, your words, your behavior, your actions at the moment, in the present moment. So right now, I am, working very hard to focus on you in this conversation while I have a puppy gnawing his very, very sharp teeth into my fingers. But I can't let him down or he's going to bark up a storm. So, really work on being present and being aware of what are those thoughts that you have running through your head? And how are those thoughts impacting, your words? So for instance, the fact that I have a dog, a puppy, seriously gnawing his sharp teeth into my hand, in my head, I'm totally ignoring the fact that it hurts and that it's sweaty and ugly, and really just focusing on you and what we're doing here. And therefore it isn't painful, and it isn't unless I all of a sudden start focusing on it. And so in order to get through, right now and be as effective and productive and fulfilled and feel good when I get off, even though I have a dog squirming in my arms, I'm, really making sure that I'm paying attention to my being. And so if you can work on that each and every day when you're driving, don't just put on the radio and kind of go through some, memories or some, stressors during the day, or a to-do list, or what you need to do when you get home. Kind of focus on your surroundings. Start and that's probably kind of a simple starting point of self-awareness, is especially if you can get on like a highway, or in your neighborhood, and just pay attention to the signs, and pay attention to the people walking down the street, or the cars racing past you, or the trees lining the streets, or the activity going on. Like, stay there as opposed to getting lost in something that takes you away of being very present. Okay. And then, and this definitely is something you could pass on to your younger, up and coming and emerging leaders. And that is, ask others for feedback around you. So we're talking self-awareness, right? So ask yourself those questions that we talked about, challenge yourself to be present in the moment, and then ask others for their feedback. Unless you're, in a company that invests in you having, 360 assessments, or some degree of personal assessment done, or coaching, or leadership development that focuses on you, not necessarily skills, that focuses on mindset, then seek other people, because you're not getting that feedback. So go to the people that know you, that you trust, to give you honest, supportive, helpful feedback. And you might not like everything that you hear, but at the same time, you can't ignore the fact that if they are trusting, loyal, devoted individuals at home or at work, in your life, and they have an interest in your success, then any of the information that they provide is going to be beneficial to you. I did this. I wish I did it when I was in corporate, but I did it several years after that, when I decided I was going through what I call my excavation of my soul journey. And I really needed to understand, kind of the impact I was having on other people around me. And so, I kind of took my 5 sisters out, and along with my mother, we went for cocktails on a deck. And I asked them, give me one word descriptions of me, good, bad, or ugly. Just spew them out. Like, don't spend too much time thinking about them, or you're going to start conjuring up stuff. Just give it. Well, they didn't need any conjuring. They kind of gave me a page and a half of all of it. And, working on this, remained very open to receiving it, even though those that were definitely disappointing and hurtful, and they didn't intend to hurt me, but they were hurtful, that I was behaving and performing in such a way that it was hurtful. So ask others. All right. So ask yourself a bunch of questions, challenge yourself to remain present, and then ask others for feedback that will help you continue to work on your self-awareness. And then for your team members, for your younger team members, remember, just ask them what it is that they need in order to be successful. Set expectations to exceed, not just deliver what it is that's expected of them, if they want to get ahead. And at the same time, motivate, inspire, develop, coach, and challenge them outside their comfort zone, and trust that they'll deliver for you. All right. And again, if you want any more information about the work that we do at Ball of Fire Coaching, feel free to reach out. At the same time, you can schedule a complimentary coaching call for 30 minutes to discuss what you might be, up to, and how I might be able to support you in giving you tips and advice right then and there. No obligation to anything else, just right then and there, helping you get the support you need to keep moving forward. All right. You can also link in with me at bernadetteboas. And I also I want to make sure, if you are questioning kind of what does it take for me to stand out and get recognized and rewarded, and you're being told so many different things, and some of them seem to pan out, but some of them seem to not work. Well, I wrote a very short and sweet but powerful ebook called 3 Must-Have Myths to Success, talking about those things you've been told that are false, and therefore what can you actually do to get recognized and rewarded for the contribution that you're making. So you can also go to balloffirecoaching.com to download that free ebook. Okay. I'm looking around, just making sure. I appreciate you all being welcoming and patient as I scramble to keep this guy in check. And I will be right back here next Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern time. But again, you can reach out at any point in time right here in the stream, wherever you're watching this, and leave a comment, and I will be sure to get back to you as quickly as possible. All right. Until then, have a rich, prosperous week and be the powerhouse leader you are meant to be. Take care, everybody. Bye.